Trying to have a life that has impact on good on others, I think is a life well lived. And real estate's one of them that I love. All I really do is help wealthy and affluent people be more wealthy and affluent. If I could help these wealthy and affluent people do some good with the people who really need it, I think I can feel like my life's really had an impact and I've made a difference.
Are you a working professional but struggling to balance the workload of your career, family, obligations, and preparing for your financial future? If so, this podcast is for you. You've spent years learning your craft, and now it's time to focus on your financial future. This podcast will teach you what you need to retire wealthy and happy. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast. Good morning, Earl. Today we have the totally awesome Jason Harris with us. Jason is a great personal friend, has gone from being a financial advisor to having over 80 million in funds that he controls and buys real estate with. Good morning, Jason. How are you today?
Hey, doing well. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Hey, good morning, Jason. I don't know if you remember this. Roger and I were back in Kansas City. It was, I think it was 2 years ago, right about 2 years ago. We flew in to look at some property in there, and Roger said, "Oh, I've got to call Jason. He'll hook us up with the area." I think we were planning on going and looking at some of the stuff that you had recommended over on the Missouri side. The snow was so bad that day; it was awful. But you hooked us up with the absolute best barbecue place I've ever had in my life. And I've spent a lot of time in Dallas, and I've been in Atlanta. I've been in all sorts of barbecue places. But hands down, that was the best barbecue I've ever had in my life. So thanks very much for a great referral to a great restaurant out there.
Oh, I'm glad it worked out. You know, it's really hard being from Texas to admit this, but I love the barbecue in Kansas City. I need to find some better spots maybe in Texas, but at this point, Kansas City is where I want to go for barbecue. Jack Stacks is where it's at.
Next time you're in Dallas, hook me, give me a call. I've got a couple of places in Dallas.
Return the favor. I like it. I'm heading down there a couple weeks, actually. I'll have to text you.
I had a couple of partners that were from, I used to fly in once a month and speak on to help raise money for apartments. And my two partners were there in Dallas area. And so they hooked me up with some really, really fantastic barbecue shops while we were in there.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'll have to reach out.
So Jason, when I met you, we were, probably at a RIA or something. We met a couple of times, and as we were working together, I think you were selling off some fourplexes. Why don't you take a few minutes and tell us about your story?
Yeah, no, thanks, Roger. Earl, appreciate it again having me. I feel so blessed, even to be at this point, fortunate to have seen what real estate's done for me and for my family. I grew up in Amarillo, Texas. The economy there and job growth and opportunities were pretty slim. Our family struggled financially as I grew up as a child. And so I always just had this vision that I could do better, I could do more, and almost needed and wanted to in order to help my family. So it came from this, I was driven. I knew I could work hard. I was willing to sacrifice for something better. But I really just wanted to do it for my family, who I thought were great people. I had a good childhood, but money was so tight. There was a lot of times, we were told no, we couldn't afford it. And we weren't able to go on any nice vacations or trips. I'd never seen the ocean, never gone on a cruise, we'd never talked about Disneyland. None of those things were possible. And I knew that. But for me, I wanted, to find a way where that could be possible, because I knew people, even in Amarillo, who had the means and ability to do that. And so I started at a young age reading books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like most people. When I was young, I read Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, and just anything I could about business and real estate and investing. And so in high school, I saved 75% of everything I earned. I worked at Pizza Hut earning $5.25 an hour. And so you're not going to save a lot, but I learned the principle and the discipline of taking away 75% of every paycheck. And fortunately, my dad introduced me to someone who we looked at as a very wealthy or financially strong individual who was a financial planner at Edward Jones. And so, Roger, you may not have known this, but that's why later in my career, I ended up working for Edward Jones. But I really respected this gentleman, and he sat down with me and he showed me, if you were to invest at my age, in my, I don't know, it's maybe 16 or 17, what that could look like in my retirement or my future. And that compounding effect was real. And it's because of time. I had time on my side. I wasn't earning a lot of money, but I figured someday maybe I could. However, I did know that if I started and I was willing to invest for the long term, that it could really help. And so I started that financial discipline and principle of putting away 75%. I came to college and school up in Utah in 2007. And fortunately, because I had been growing this money in my mutual fund account with my dad, since I was under 18, I had to do a joint account with my dad. I came to school with some money, and the first time I had to pull some money out of the market to pay for school, it just tore me up inside. I literally felt like everything I'd worked so hard for, it wouldn't take that many semesters of tuition payments for it to be all gone. And I just decided there's no way I'm taking and touching this money anymore. I will work my way through college. I'm not going to ruin my future. It was that important to me. And so I didn't touch it. In fact, I got a pretty good part-time sales job where I was able to make enough where I kept putting money away, even though I was paying my way through school. I was paying for room and board. I didn't have a family or people in my life that had the ability to, pay for it. And I didn't get a scholarship. I maybe could have. I didn't know better to try to apply for them. So anyhow, fast forward a little bit, I started realizing I need somewhere to live. I hate giving this money away to the landlord of where I'm living. I had this crazy idea, Roger. I was going to buy a motor home, 7-year to 10-year-old depreciated asset that I probably wouldn't lose its value much more, that I could live in for the 4 years and then sell for the same amount and save the $20K I was going to pay in rent over my 4-year period at school. Probably never would have gotten married, Roger. No one would have ever dated me if I had this old place that I was parking around town. But what I'm sharing is it's the mindset. And I had this mindset that I'm going to sacrifice early in my life because I know it can be much better if I'm willing to be disciplined now and putting money away. And so eventually it came around where my in-laws were buying a fourplex. And I had learned that real estate was a good investment, and I wanted to be a part of that and learn it. And I asked if they'd be willing to let me go in on a fourth of it. I didn't have the ability to pay cash for what a quarter of that fourplex would have been, which would have been about $80,000. It was a $320,000 fourplex, but I had $20,000 I had saved, which is a meaningful amount when you're 23, 24, paying your way through because of what I had been putting away. And so what happened was the real estate agent, kind of seeing my interest, actually said that they thought I could possibly buy a fourplex myself and that I didn't need to go in. And it blew my mind that there were these FHA owner-occupied loans where you could do 5% or less down, potentially, if the numbers worked. And so it was then, Roger, where I really learned, wow, this is something I have got to figure out. And it took us about 5 or 6 months to find the right property. But in 2010, we bought our first fourplex on an FHA loan, $19,000 down. I got the first time home buyer credit that Obama was offering at the time. And within 2 months, I had my down payment back to me already because of the pro rata rents that I got, the security deposits, the first time home buyer credit. And then, as you know, they accrue all the interest for your first mortgage payment at closing. And so the following month, I didn't have to make a mortgage payment, and I was able to collect all of the rent from the fourplex. And so the $19K I put down, I had the $19K back in my bank account, and I was sold. Real estate is the game for me, and I'm not kidding. I don't care. I didn't care what I did for a career. I didn't care how I was going to earn a living. I knew as long as I could buy enough real estate, that was what was going to help me retire and help me be financially free. And being naive and young, I thought I just need 3 fourplexes and I'll be able to retire wealthy and happy and have more than I'll ever need. And, obviously as the family grew and expenses grew, I realized, okay, there's no way 3 4plexes is going to be enough. But that's how it all began for me. And through my career as a financial advisor at Edward Jones for 7 years, my whole goal was to just buy as much real estate as I possibly could. I didn't know how to be a real estate investor yet. I was still in my early to mid 20s. So I thought, be a financial advisor by day, real estate investor by night. And as I grow my portfolio, eventually I'll get to a point where I can step away. And I was able to do that when I was 33, left Edward Jones, had a portfolio of probably 100 units or so at the time. And really, that's when real estate ramped up in a big, meaningful way, where, now we're approaching 400 million in portfolio value. I think we'll hit $500 million this year. A lot of that's now with investors, of course. I'm probably still the lead investor of the portfolio. But just so grateful to be where we are now and learn so many great things being a financial advisor, and how to explain and speak to different investments and how they can be very complementary to real estate, which is my favorite asset class. Yet I think all of them, when working together, can be very helpful. So that was probably a longer answer than you were looking for there, but really excited about how that's all happened for us.
That's actually perfect because I'm sitting here listening, and 1,000 things that you touched on. From reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, how what an impact. We rarely interview anybody that is in this sector at all that hasn't read it, hasn't read Kiyosaki. I actually got to coach with him, probably 2004 to 2007, something like that. I actually worked for Robert. He used to come, probably every 3 months or so. He'd come and spend an afternoon with the team and answer questions and that type of thing. So it was a lot of fun. You are currently doing what, 2,500 doors? Is that about where you're at?
We have about 2,500, 2,600. We've got 2 deals under contract right now that'll put us at 3,000, one in Dallas and one in Louisville, Kentucky. However, we probably have about 150 million in truck stops and gas stations. There's some really significant tax loss benefits from depreciation in the oil and gas play of truck stops. So it's a much different strategy, and it's for a different, perhaps, investor type. But between that and our residential, that's what gets us to around that $400 million portfolio value.
The thing that absolutely amazes me, I'm talking about, after a 20-year career, I started coaching for Kiyosaki. You practically started first year in college or whatever it sounds like. And started buying apartments or whatever. Tell me a little bit about you started, your first duplex, and then you had 2 or 3 fourplexes. Obviously your family's gotten quite a bit bigger, or your wife spends a lot more money than you used to, because you need I'm just joking. You need 25,000 units to keep 2,500, to keep up. Tell me a little bit about the progression of how you did your first couple that were probably yours. And at some point you incorporated your Edward Jones skills and started raising money privately. Tell me a little bit about how that progressed.
And if I may, just to remind you, I grew up in Amarillo, Texas. There's not a network of anyone I knew doing real estate in a big way, right? And so I didn't know what I was doing that well. My in-laws owned a duplex at the time. So I felt like, well, I'm willing to bet on me and my ability to figure out the problems of owning a property myself, which is and that I could lean on them if I came into a problem and ask them what I should do. So that's why I was willing to, at 24, buy a fourplex and put all my money that I had worked so hard for in my high school and college career to attain. But again, I was blown away how quickly I got the money back. And then now I had someone paying all of my expenses. And so I created this goal to then buy as quickly as I could more real estate, but I didn't really know how, and I didn't know who to turn to. So I did read as many books as I could. I attended a Robert Kiyosaki 3-day seminar that I paid for to be a part of. I actually was the guy that was willing to sell the fourplex to buy their top package. And fortunately, the lady there is probably seeing this young kid. Don't do that. You're doing what you were trying to teach people to do. Don't go sell the asset to, buy the top package. But I just wanted the education so bad. I wanted to know all the things that I didn't know because I didn't know who to ask. And so what I mean is it was really slow to start, Earl. I didn't know a better way. And so I went back to what I knew of saving everything I could from my paycheck monthly, as well as that new income that I was generating from the fourplex. Because I wasn't paying any rent or a mortgage due to the 3 units of rent income from the fourplex covering all my expenses, what I would have paid in rent of $650, $700 at the time, plus the $250 I was already saving for my paycheck, now became what I was putting away. So about $900 to $1,000 a month is what I was setting aside for my next property. While I tried to figure out what that even looked like, and I learned by the lenders, you can't own or occupy a property more than a year at a time. And so it was my goal then. It's like, okay, I'm going to move every year so I could get an owner occupied loan, because the fourplex I bought was $434,000. Had I bought it like most investors, and this is a good way to do it, but from what I learned is you have to put 25% down. 25% down on 432 grand, that's $108,000 plus closing costs. There's no way at that time in my life I was ever going to save 108,000, or if I did, it was going to take me 10 or 20 years. And so I just knew that wasn't possible for me at that time. So I had a goal with my wife that we were going to own or occupy a property every year that we were eligible, and in the meantime, save as much as we could for the down payment. So it wasn't until 2014, Earl, that I was able to buy the next property. It was a duplex in Provo, a 4-bed, 2-bath per side, which was really big. And it was because I saw an opportunity to switch it from a family rental to a per bedroom individual single or per bedroom. What am I trying to say? Furnishing
student housing,
so that I could rent it out per bedroom. And so it went from $950 a month in rent to $1,900 a month in rent per side. So $1,900 to $3,800 a month. And so a huge increase to the income potential. And that's what I did. I bought it with it was actually a portfolio loan product that US Bank offered, which was 10% down. And that's why I was able to buy it for $271,000. I needed 27 grand of down payment, which was even more than the fourplex that I used an FHA loan product with. But I was able to negotiate a seller credit to cover my closing cost. So all I needed was the down payment. And so then I was living in that side. The rent income of $1,900 was enough to cover all my expenses once again. I now had a fourplex that was fully renovated instead of me living in one. So that gave me another $1,000 a month. So what happened is this snowball effect started happening, Earl, where now I was saving $2,000 a month because I was able to rent out the fourplex. And in addition to that, anytime you're living in a investment property that's 2 units or smaller, I learned you're eligible for a home equity line of credit. And so I fixed up the unit, increased the income, and 6 months after purchasing it, qualified for a home equity line of credit on a new appraised value, not the purchase price that I bought it for 6 months prior. You do have to wait 6 months or more for them to not go off of the purchase price, I learned. And so what happened is I bought it for $271. I put probably $15K into it that I had available, which came from some commissions that we had negotiated as part of the transaction. It appraised 6 months later for $345, and you can get up to 100% of the appraised value. And so that line of credit ended up being almost $100K, which incorporated my initial down payment plus this forced appreciation and equity that I'd created in the duplex. And I was off to the races, Earl. All of a sudden I realized, wow, I can tap into this amount of money that easily. All I need to do is find ugly, old, distressed properties. I can come in, fix them up, improve them, increase the income potential. And off of that higher appraisal, I'll tap into the equity again and use the line of credit. And, back then money was pretty cheap. And so I did that for a number of years, just with my own portfolio of buying these ugly old duplexes and fourplexes. And that's kind of how I built the portfolio. And in time, in my late 20s, and maybe by the time I was 30, I had about a 75 unit portfolio in Utah County. Maybe I had some in Salt Lake as well, but people started to take note that I was doing something different. I was pretty good with the numbers and able to find opportunities. And so people wanted to start partner with me. Started out with family and friends, of course. And then in time, after I did a lot of JV partnerships, I started to syndicate some bigger properties doing 20 or 100 unit type size. And about 2018, 2019, we started to do a fund structure. And so we syndicate and do funds now, but it was all hustle, my own money and my own grit and working late nights to try to build it initially. But in time, learned enough along the way to start doing it with others and never look back. It's been such a fun ride.
Well, that's just so cool. Roger, you've heard me joke about when I was coaching for Kiyosaki and I taught people how they could get out of the rat race in 12 weeks, right? You sell everything you have and you live in a Volkswagen bus, park it on the beach, go fishing every day. What's amazing is that Jason found a way to get completely out of the rat race with his first deal by buying a fourplex and letting the fourplex pay his expenses. And he basically lived for free. So congratulations. You didn't even have to move into a Volkswagen bus, which your wife would have probably left you over that one anyway. So
the irony, Earl, of it all too, that fourplex was a 3-bed, 2-bath townhome styled fourplex, meaning it was 12 beds, 8 bath total.
Uh-huh.
That townhome, if I were trying to rent it at that period of time in my life, I would not have been able to afford it. So ironically, because I owned the fourplex, I was able to live better than I would have been able to do had I been willing to spend my own money to go live somewhere. And it was even funny to me when we closed and I got all the information of who my tenants were. I was the youngest person, obviously, that lived there. But in addition to that, all 3 of my tenants made more money than I did. And here I am laughing. I get to live in a place that I really can't afford right now because I'm the owner. And not only that, they're the ones that are providing me the opportunity to live here because they're covering all my expenses. And so I actually truly felt grateful that I learned this secret from this real estate agent who knew if you have strong enough income, you can qualify for these great financing options if you're willing to owner occupy. And again, we upgraded owner occupying it versus where we were living prior. And so I'm just so glad that, proximity to people who knew more than me, going to the RIAs, like Roger was saying, I talked and I asked a lot of questions because I was so curious and I hungered for the, people who knew more than me. And so it really helped getting to know people who were doing a lot more than I was.
Well, and be grateful that you didn't sacrifice that duplex for the Kiyosaki program, because I'd have been the guy that was telling you to sell all your assets and go live on the beach in a bus, and now you'd be on your second or third wife by now or something like that. Anyway, Roger,
it worked out. Yep,
that's really cool. It takes a long time to learn that for a lot of us. So I'm approaching 50, and I think I hit that landmark when I was 49. So now I live in Pleasant Grove and I have an Airbnb in my basement. And this is the first time that I've ever lived for free. I've had investments outside of that, and it's probably better when I had the family growing up that it was like that, because we had our freedom and our, privacy and stuff. But now it's like I look at some of these people that are so much far advanced than me, and they're all doing it. It's like, you don't need to do that, but they do it because it's smart, and it gives you a real nice financial cushion.
Yeah. For 10 years, Roger, we never paid any housing cost. If you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and look up the annual consumer spending surveys, the biggest expense in America, it's actually taxes, but they don't put that on there. Taxes are our biggest expense, but they show it as housing, and housing represents about 35% of everything we spend. For me, I was I knew that if I didn't have to spend anything on housing, that's an extra 35% of my income I can put away for my retirement and my future. And so I was very big on reducing tax liability and reducing my housing costs because those are my two biggest expenses. And so for 10 years, Carrie and I lived in investment properties that had enough income from the other units to offset all of the expense. So there was no mortgage payment. Now, yeah, there's things that come up every now and again that I have to pay for as the owner, right? And that did happen. But I also had some extra income some months because there wasn't anything that happened as well. And even in time, it was investment properties to begin with, but towards the later end of that 10 years, it was single family homes that we had some type of rental or Airbnb or a long-term lease component in the basement. I was telling you earlier about this house in Linden. It was a beautiful home and we loved it. It was 7,200 square feet. So it was no small house, but the basement had 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, a kitchen, and just was a great space. We got $2,000 a month from the basement to offset our expenses. And we lived in this beautiful home for 3 years. And I remember at the 10-year mark, I told Carrie for her birthday or for Christmas that we were finally going to take the full house and no longer lease the basement. And so we turned it into a movie theater room. We had a game room. We had a gym and a cool play area for the kids. And so that was a big, like, monumental moment that, for 10 years we had sacrificed making sure the home was some type of asset or income for us, which put us in a position over that 10-year period for me to be a lot more aggressive with our investments. I was doing hard money loans on some of these properties and trying to force equity and then using that equity as the down payment when I refied out of the hard money. And I did a lot of deals like that allowed us to build up this real estate portfolio faster. But I think it is because of our home situation being taken care of that allowed us to take that type of risk. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have been comfortable doing it. And so I'm grateful for that time in our lives that we did that. It really did set us up. We're able to enjoy that, freedom now.
That's really cool. So now you're doing a lot of apartments and also some gas stations. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. During my career as a financial advisor, I was fortunate to work with a few affluent families early in my career, and one in particular who owned thousands of real estate doors himself as a real estate developer. And I sat in on one of their estate planning strategies and tax planning strategies and was blown away that earlier, it was about 10 years ago, he had sold a real estate project for a $20 million profit. And he didn't pay a dime in taxes. And I thought for sure there is something shady going on here. I cannot be a part of this. I mean, I just didn't understand how could that even be possible. And it was then I learned how you can utilize real estate as a phenomenal tax shelter strategy when done correctly. And so that's when I realized, wow, I have got to become, either my wife or I, a real estate professional. And when you do that, the phantom losses of depreciation on real estate can now become active losses instead of passive losses. And when it's an active loss, you can use active losses against any income, earned income, capital gains, passive income, portfolio income. And so understanding how different incomes are taxed on tax returns became, something really exciting and intriguing for me. And I realized real estate's going to be my tax shelter strategy to grow my wealth. And so, Roger, I'm forgetting what your question was, but I learned that. And that's what really helped me figure out what my real estate strategy was going to be and how I was going to be able to grow my portfolio faster. Remind me, though, what your question was.
That you're investing in gas stations. So
yeah.
I kind of have put a couple of little things together, and somebody we mutually know mentioned a gas station truck stop in Miami. Is that?
Oh, yeah. I actually just did a 1031 last year into a Miami truck stop, put about 1.25 million of equity in it. Just got cash flow distributions. We're getting a 12% cash on cash return. Not too bad, right? In this market, this economy, pretty excited about the cash flow on it. But what really was intriguing about it is the tax shelter benefits. If 50% of the revenue comes from the oil and gas on the pump and not from the convenience store aspect of the store or of the project that you're buying, it actually qualifies for a unique tax benefit in the tax code that allows you to accelerate the depreciation all in the first year. So the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017 and 18 says that anything that's considered a useful life of 20 years or less on a cost segregation study can now be taken in the first year instead of having to stretch it out over 5, 7, 15, or 27 and a half years. So what we did is we put a cost seg study on that truck stop. Everything, both the real property content and the building, qualified for a 20-year life item or less, which allowed us to fully depreciate the full purchase in the first year. And Roger, that's when it's a game changer. I mean, for example, that $1.25 million of equity that I put into it, actually, I think translated to a $2.8 million depreciation loss. So if you can generate a $2.8 million phantom loss, and for someone like me who's considered a real estate professional, utilize that loss as an active loss against any income, I'm in the highest tax rate. So at 37% federal and 5% state, that's a 42% per dollar benefit that I'm getting. Let's just make the math easy and call it 40%. 40% of 2.8 million, that's $1.12 million, give or take. That's almost all of the equity that I put into the deal I get back just from tax savings alone before the actual assets performed. It's incredible. And this gas station's a great deal. The cash flow right now is really strong, double digits. But what we liked so much about it is because of this operator and the strength of the operator getting to 100 stores, there's better financing available for operators that have more strength. And when we go to flip this gas station, which we'll probably do next year, although we could do it this year as well, we'll probably generate about a $5 to $6 million equity. We bought it for an 8.6 cap rate. And this particular operator and the brand of this store typically trades at a 6.5 cap. So if you can make a 2% spread on the cap rate, even in today's market with debt and interest rates being as high as they are, that becomes a very meaningful equity or growth strategy in addition to the cash flow that you're making along the way. And that's before this amazing tax shelter benefit, and that's all phantom. And we'll do a 1031 exchange so we don't have to recapture that depreciation. The basis just carries forward to the next property. And so, yes, that's where we got into the the truck stop gas station game, is when we had an investor who's coming into a large sum of money from the sale of a business, or a really strong W-2 income earner that's maybe making 7 figures or even high 6 figures, that's looking for tax shelter relief through real estate. And we help them build out a portfolio or a strategy around their real estate that they're trying to acquire, in addition to other assets that they also are trying to do. And so the truck stops just have very meaningful tax benefits.
Jason, the CARES Act in 2000, you allowed you to take those losses and carry them back for 5 years. I'll bet you got a pile of money when you did that.
It was incredible, Earl. I wish that was still available today. But yes, we met people who sold their businesses, let's say in 2018, and had to pay a large sum of money to the IRS from the capital gains. But then in 2020, due to the CARES Act, they were able to go acquire real estate or truck stops, which had more meaningful depreciation loss benefits, and take those losses that they generated and go amend 2018's return and have the IRS send them money back. It was like the coolest thing ever. And for that period of time, we did, during that period, we probably raised the most amount of money for our different projects because of how beneficial the tax treatment was during that time. So yeah, you're right. I wish that was still there. And as you know, the phase outs are starting to happen on this bonus depreciation. It's now 80% versus 100 last year. And so I'm trying to lock in as many losses as I can, phantom losses, because if you don't use them you don't lose them. And if you don't lose them, you can carry forward into the future. And so what I do every year is I look at how much phantom loss I need in order to shelter my future income. And I know what that income could potentially be. And so I haven't paid taxes legally for 6 or 7 years. And it's because I'm usually trying to generate a $5 million loss to the next year. And so, I could make $5 million and I know I don't have to pay any taxes on it. Can you imagine how you can navigate your strategies if you knew your first 5 million, you don't have to pay any taxes on it? It's a game changer. And so these tax benefits are so amazing right now. And if you understand them well and you can utilize it towards your strategy, it allows you to make smarter moves where you're not in a distressed position and you're not doing it for the tax savings only. You're doing it for the income and the return potential.
Yeah, I think I have personally about 2 million, and our portfolio is much smaller than yours. I think we're probably somewhere around 25 million in assets right now, but I've been able to accrue $2 million of loss carry forward. I think this year, and I haven't seen it yet, but I think each of us is going to get about another million loss carry forward from what we bought last year. And at the end of December, you talk about the taxes changing. I think it was about the 25th of December that a broker approached me. He says, I've got this small deal, but these guys want to get rid of it so bad by the end of the year. Will you just agree to buy it? He says, the loan's all done. All you have to do is slip yourself into the loan. He says there's a hiccup. And I was like, I don't even have to look at this deal, right? Because I know that the tax laws are going to change. We ultimately, something came up and we weren't able to close it, but I didn't even have to look at the deal. I'm like, are you kidding me? Lock me in for another couple $100,000 of loss carry forward going forward. So
it really is amazing, Earl. When you start looking at the tax savings component of the return, in addition to the great returns that real estate itself already offers, it's really hard to make an argument for anything else outside of real estate. I mean, it's an amazing tax efficient asset class, and there's ways to diversify within it. And so for me, real estate has always been the primary asset towards my retirement and wealth strategy. And then as I put probably an over concentration there, the returns that I make and the cash flow I make have actually helped me maximize my retirement accounts where we make our full contributions to those. And I do all things Roth 401k, Roth IRAs for both my wife and I. We actually have our children that we're doing them for now where they're working in the family business some. And so what that does is it allows us to grow our retirement accounts tax-free, which is the Roth benefit. And so many people who make strong income say, well, I can't because I make too much money. But that's not true. There is something called a backdoor Roth IRA. But what really it is, real estate can be your tax strategy. You don't need to do the traditional 401k or IRA to get the deduction like your CPA is telling you. If you're doing real estate right, it can be the tax shelter strategy. So I'm generating all these losses, phantom losses over here with real estate so that I don't have to pay taxes, which then allows me to fund Roth accounts where I don't need a deduction there. And so now I have two pillars of income, both my Roth accounts and my real estate that are growing tax-free or tax efficiently. And yet it also allows me to diversify. So I'm not too much in real estate because lenders want to see liquidity. Lenders want to see that I have something outside of real estate only, right? And so it helps me having retirement accounts and stocks and mutual funds over here to get more real estate. And the real estate, because it's doing so well from tax side of things and generating lots of income and return, is helping me fund my retirement accounts and grow more money over here. And so I actually think they're beautiful when working together.
You'll get a kick out of this. I just finished a loan. They just 2 nights ago, they let me know that it was finally done. It took them an extra 3 weeks to look over my stuff. And the question they kept coming back to was, we don't understand how you don't make any money. You've got us these taxes and we don't understand what's this $2 million loss carry for? What is this all about? What did you mess up somewhere back there? And the broker that's involved in it is just busting out laughing. He's going, these guys don't have a clue what it is that you're doing. But yeah, that loss carry forward almost didn't allow me to get the last loan we applied for. So
those underwriters are so so frustrating to work with sometimes, because where would they have learned this, Earl? Right? I mean, I don't blame them, because it's not like they're teaching this in school, but it's so frustrating because you have to teach them how to better underwrite you as a borrower and why you have strong income, but yet don't pay taxes, because you can show all these losses and that confuses them. They're like, you're going out of business. And I can't tell you how many loan officers and underwriters are saying, like, you're going to be out of business in 4 or 5 months if you keep going this way. And here I am 10, 15 years later, and I'm thinking, I am so glad I didn't take retirement advice from you, because I know what I'm doing. I understand these are phantom, and it usually works. You get the best of both worlds, because when it comes from tax strategy, if you're able to generate that phantom loss, you don't have to pay any taxes if you have enough loss to offset the income. But when it comes to qualifying for a loan, if you get an underwriter to finally understand it, they get to add all those phantom losses back to show what your real income looks like, because it's a non-cash expense. Most deductions in the tax code, you have to spend money in order to get the loss, right? But that's what makes depreciation the king of all deductions. It's a non-cash deduction. You buy assets that go up in value and they generate phantom losses. And because they're phantom and they're not real expenses that you paid cash for, you can actually, with the underwriters and loan officers, add all those phantom losses back and show what your real income is. And so it does take some teaching the underwriters who don't understand it well enough. But once you can get through that, I myself, 2 years ago, helped us buy a $60 million gas station portfolio in Texas. And so they saw I had financial strength with all the income I was making, but yet that year I didn't pay a dime in tax because I had enough losses also to offset all the income. And so you really can have the best of both worlds if you're understanding how to utilize the tax benefits to your favor.
Roger, you have any questions at this point?
Absolutely. And I was going to say, I knew about Miami because I went to lunch with Leslie Peterson.
Yeah.
And she told me that she had sold all her stuff in Ogden. And I was like, well, first I was going to buy that. So why didn't you sell it to me? And then what the heck are you doing? She's like, well, I bought a truck stop and gas station in Miami. I'm like, and this is so far out of my wheelhouse. I'm like, what's going on? But she didn't actually tell me at that point that it was related to you. She has mentioned you and your financial planning advice and stuff like that, but I just barely put that 2 and 2 together during this podcast interview. So
love Leslie, actually. And for a period of time, I don't think she'd mind me sharing this, I actually was her financial advisor. And so I knew Leslie from the RIAs first, but I think her and I were in a B&I chapter together, and she got to know my passion for real estate and investing in general. I mean, I'm living a better life than I ever thought was possible, right? Growing up in Amarillo, Texas, is not like you really imagine this life of abundance that I'm feel very blessed to be at now. And so I really do feel like real estate's changed my life. I mean, I've seen how it's drastically changed my life. And it's also helped me meet people I never would have probably met, because I never would have been a person that people perhaps would have wanted to meet. I don't know. I mean, I'm a good person, but it's, a lot of people I'm able to meet because of what I can add in value to them in regards to their wealth strategy or real estate specifically. And so Leslie, I was able to meet through that. And then in time of, talking to her, she obviously was very astute and smart and understood a lot of different aspects of real estate. But when it comes to numbers, that's something that's harder for people sometimes to really know how to compare one deal versus another. And there's so many options and asset types out there. And I think that's something that I've done really well. And I'm an analytical person. I love numbers. I love understanding it. And so I've been able to speak to that and to many others. And so in looking at the successes that she was having with her portfolio, but also ways to make it better, there was an opportunity there, I think, to have her equity working harder for her so that the returns that she was making on equity would improve. The tax efficiencies could be stronger, and it would help her and Eric get to a place where they'd be able to retire with a lot more income or sooner, whatever it is that they wanted. And so we kind of came up with a plan and a strategy, and I hope and think that she's pleased with it. And I think it's looking really well for her to be able to hit her goal or maybe even more. And that's the funny thing, Roger. I think what happens is real estate sometimes can outperform what your expectation is. And then you want to change your goal because you realize, wow, I wanted 3-4plex to begin with, Earl, but now I realize I can do a lot better than that. And I'm still young and I still love what I do. And so why not?
Hey, we want to change partly because I'm looking at the clock going, we've got about maybe 10 more minutes with you here, but and I've really enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun for me as well. So tell me a little bit about how your life has changed. Regarding work life balance, family, that type of thing. How do you achieve balance with all the things that you're doing?
That's one that I think all of us struggle with, Earl. No matter where you are, it's just always hard because life isn't meant to be balanced. I think we're always trying to counterbalance wherever energy and focus is flowing. And you can't focus too long in one area because other areas of your life are going to fall apart or drop. And so you have to constantly be counterbalancing. It's a juggling act. And so for me, you've got to understand where the priorities of your life are. Family, friends, relationships. That's got to be the priority in your life. It's my priority in my life. And so I haven't always been best at putting it as the priority, however, right? And so I've had to learn how to do that better. And so when I left Edward Jones at 33, I went all in on my business, Harris Investment Group, which, has now been able to grow to where it is today. And in time, I've been able to hire really smart, competent people to help grow that team. And it's allowed me now more than it did then to step away in areas to be more involved in the family dynamic. And that's what I'm mostly grateful for. Real estate, the income, the assets, the business. In a way, it needs me. But if you're running it right, it can run without you. And I want to get it to a point where I can have more time with my kids, with my wife, with travel. And we do a lot of those things. But I want to be able to do a lot more. And I'm working actually on writing a book. I have a podcast I'm launching called Millionaire Momentum. I want to talk about every deal I've done since inception and how I did it, what I did well, and what I could have done better. Because I like the education aspect. I really do like sharing real estate. I'm appreciative of the people who are willing to share with me when I was early in my career, and what a game changer that made, learning these things from real estate professionals and investors that knew far more than I did. And so I'm looking forward to that. And I just try to remind myself that that's what really brings me happiness. I love making money doing good real estate deals. I really do. But at the end of the day, if I didn't have important people in my life to share that excitement with, it would all be for naught. It wouldn't matter to me. There would be no fulfillment in it. And so it really just comes down to making sure you're making a priority with your spouse and with your kids and the people who build you up and they make you feel better. And so I try to surround myself with them as much as I can. We just got back from a trip to Hawaii with some friends that just really gave me a lot of energy and excitement being around them, because it was a step away from the day-to-day, that grind that, often we get into, and just allows you to realize, like, having good people in your life that bring you good energy is what this is for. And anyhow, that's what I'm trying to do better at. And it's a constant thing that you have to look at and analyze and see ways that you can do better.
Yeah, I understand you own a house over in Hawaii. I was going to ask you about that, but that's a long ways from Amarillo, the desert of Amarillo, isn't it?
Quite different, yes. And I do go back to Amarillo a couple times a year. I'll be there in May. We actually do scholarships to my old high school in Amarillo Independent School District. That was partly out of honor of my grandma and granddad, had a big impact on me in my life. And so Carrie and I have a foundation that we started that does 2 scholarships a year, 10,000 each, that we award a recipient. So I get out there, I get to see my grandma who's still living, and my aunt and uncle and a couple cousins on occasions. But Hawaii is a completely different destination, and that's my getaway. It's my happy place. And every time I think, why do I not live here? Why am I working so hard back home on the mainland? I love how slow paced Hawaii is. It really allows me to escape and have a place to heal and to re-energize. So
what does your future hold as far as traveling?
Roger, we travel already quite a bit. In fact, we try to bring the kids as much as we can. We just took the kids to Europe over Christmas. That was a lot of fun. We did Christmas in London, and then we did a cruise and hit 4 different countries and got to show the kids, different parts of the world. We have a goal to take our kids to every continent before they leave the home. Real estate's done that for us, right? Investing early and starting early has done that. I think the future holds more volunteering, service, charity. That's where my wife and I find a lot of fulfillment. And right now, Harris Investment Group helps us meet a lot of affluent people that hopefully we do well by. And by doing well by these affluent people where they have disposable income, there's opportunities for them to get involved in some of the charitable causes my wife and I are passionate about. So the Kinwell Foundation, I think, is going to piggyback off the success of Harris Investment Group over time, where we're building these relationships with people who we enjoy working with on the real estate side. But I hope in time there's going to be more charitable causes too. And so we actually go serve at an orphanage in Mexico. There's 11 in particular with a Child's Hope. And my wife right now has hired an empowerment coach to build a platform that can help empower the kids' mindsets, because there's still a real struggle with the orphans when they leave the orphanage to survive on their own, because there's no support group. And so if you look at the statistics of orphans, the average life expectancy is the age of 30. And it's just so sad because so many of them, because of the lack of support, fall victim to teenage pregnancy, drugs, and other things that just put the kids right back into the orphanage system. And so there's things that Carrie's doing with an empowerment coach to build a platform to help these 11 orphanages that we hope to then take to other orphanages that are already getting their physical needs met. So I think that's going to be a part of the future. I think the scholarships will be something. I'm sure we'll find other causes. There's so many needs that this world has, and we're not going to be able to solve very many of them, but hopefully we can solve 1 or 2 issues with the efforts that we have. And that brings us a lot of fulfillment, trying to have a life that has impact and on good on others, I think is a life well lived. And real estate's one of them that I love, but I hope that it can be more than that, because right now I kind of see it as all I really do is help wealthy and affluent people be more wealthy and affluent. And how good does that really make you feel? I mean, I get a little satisfaction out of it, but if I could help these wealthy and affluent people do some good with the people who really need it, I think I can feel like my life's really had an impact and I've made a difference. So
we usually ask every guest some 4 questions and just to kind of get your feedback. Do you have a favorite business book that you love?
It's hard to narrow it down to one. The one that's had the most impact on me, though, perhaps recently, would be Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. Really, a lot of the Rich Dad series. Tom Wheelwright was Robert Kiyosaki's CPA, and he talks about a lot of tax-favored asset classes and tax treatment that are available in the tax code, and real estate being probably the best of all of those. And there's some others, too, that are really great. Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Multifamily Millions by David Lindahl. These have all had some big impacts to me that I've read over and over again and tried to take some golden nuggets away that I could implement myself in my own real estate portfolio growth. So hopefully that helps.
Very cool. Yeah, we were at a Lindell seminar. Roger and I we took the group down last October, wasn't it?
Yep, to Phoenix.
Yeah, and then
Ultimate partnering.
First time I read that book, Earl, I thought, man, this isn't applicable to me. I mean, who buys 100-unit apartment complexes? I don't know a single, I mean, that it's just amazing to me how in time things can really grow. And I just never thought that book would have any real application to me. And yet now I read and I think this is just amazing. And I could have done it sooner. I just didn't know how to apply a lot of what he taught in that book. And I think it's a great book. I think he's done a really good job. So
very good. Talk about happiness. What is it that you think actually brings you happiness?
It goes back to it's the relationships we build in life, right? For me, I'm a man of faith. I love God, and I see His hand in my life and what it's done for me. My wife and my family, bring me a lot of joy, and I love the times I get to spend with them, especially when we're doing the travel, because I'm less focused on the task at the office or with the real estate. I can be present of mind and just really reflect on the things that bring me joy. And so it's just having your life mean something to other people, showing up for them, finding opportunities to serve and to show some kindness and care for other people. When we go down to the Mexico trip, we're actually about to take our company out to an Eastern Caribbean cruise, and we bring the spouses with us. And that's a lot of fun. I love these trips. But going to the orphanage with the couples that work for Harris Investment Group last year was probably one of my favorite trips, because we're all working hard for a greater good for someone else. And we're sacrificing, we're giving something up, and it's giving something up of yourself for someone else and seeing that happiness that, you bring to a child's life. That's what this is about. I mean, that's what brings the happiness. It's helping other people. And, I feel like I do that with real estate and I love it, but I like doing it where you're really giving up something.
I'll give you a second. You've really talked about future retirement and what it looks like for you. Do you have anything else you want to add about what your retirement's going? I can tell right now that your retirement is going to be very different than the vast majority of people in the country, because you've prepared so well for it.
If I may, though, Earl, I want to create a legacy for my family, a long legacy for many generations. And I believe that I can do that. But beyond that, I don't want to just give money to my kids and grandkids. I want them to be hardworking, contributing citizens. And so I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of money that I give to my kids and grandkids. I'm going to teach them the principles and concepts so they go out and do it themselves. And so my son, he's 12, he already comes to the office with me and breaks down properties on the MLS. I want to know their cap rates, their cash on cash returns. I want to know what I want him to know it. And so he has a goal to buy a duplex on his own. And it's from money that he's earning himself through hours that he actually puts in. And so my hope for retirement is that my kids grow passionate about something that they feel good about, waking up in the morning and making the world a better place. And that they have a passion within some charitable cause, that hopefully a greater amount of this money that we're trying to build through our business and real estate goes to those charitable causes that my kids are the board of and help in those efforts. Because my kids don't need all this money. I want them to go out and work hard and build their own lives with their spouses and their families. But I do hope that they see that money can do a lot of good. And so I hope that the money goes to charities that my kids are a part of, and they see the future of that money do a lot of good in the world. And I think that's what my wife and I are most excited about. There's going to be some great trips and family vacations and nice properties that we'll own as second homes, but it's going to be more about doing some good in the world. I hope that's what we're all about.
Well, that's great. Roger's heard me joke about this too. I don't want to ruin my kids by leaving them a whole bunch of money. So my goal is to spend the last $10 just before they put me 6 feet under.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably not going to be able to happen, by the way, but
The Millionaire Next Door talks about that frugality, but it also talks about leaving too much money for your kids. And so that's another great book. If you do have means and wealth, how to better pass that down to kids and grandkids, but also do it in a way that doesn't hurt them. Because I don't think any of us want to hurt our kids and our grandkids. We want it to help. And there's a way to do that, perhaps in a way that's not giving them too much money, because that can be a problem.
Yep. All right. Last question, really quick. And you talked a lot about this. I can see you're a man of faith. You spend a lot of time with giving back. Just talk a little bit about what, for the average person, what do you think is the best way for them to give back?
There's so many ways to serve. I mean, it's the little things every day that you can do, I think, right? For my wife and I just try to look at the people who've had a big impact in my life. My granddad was one of those persons that I looked up to. My mom's been a big component of who I've become as a person, I think. And so I want to pay respect to them and what they taught me in way of good principles. And so the scholarships were in honor of my grandma and granddad. So we've done that. We have goals to try to do more of those scholarships each year. I get so excited to see the impact that it has on these young individuals' lives of helping them go to college and hopefully have a better opportunity and career. They've worked hard to get to that point. The orphanage trips, those are another thing. You don't have to have very much money to do that. It's really just giving your time. And so find something that you can give your time towards if you don't have money and means to do it. We spend a good amount of time and money now and resources towards the orphans. Kids are the future of our society, and so we want to invest in our kids, Carrie Nice kids, and then other ones' kids. And a lot of these orphans, right, don't have the parents at home, and so they don't have that support system. And so that's right now where we're trying to do a lot. But it's sometimes just the simplest things. Just smiling and waving at people. I grew up in the South, right? The Southern hospitality. I enjoyed, a wave and a smile can go far sometimes, and that's not offering a whole lot, but it can make an impact. There's a lot of people struggling, right now. Anxiety and depression are at all-time highs, and so just have being willing to be kind and smile and help someone out, I think, can mean a lot to people. You never know who's struggling.
Hey, thanks so much for spending your time. This has really been a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope that the listeners got something out. I don't see how they could possibly not, just look at this and go, oh my gosh, here's a guy that started with virtually nothing and has ended up owning, literally billions of dollars worth of assets and blessing the lives of so many other people. So we really, really appreciate it. Make sure, if you would, I think you've gotten this stuff to Ben. We want to be able to put so that people know how they can get a hold of you. So we can put it into the show notes and that type of thing. I think there's some background on your company and stuff like that. So we encourage people to take a look at the notes and find out how they can get in contact with you. Roger, anything?
That's it. I don't know if you want to clean up that last comment, but if anybody wants to find out more about Jason, we'll definitely include information about him in our show notes. If you want to say that, or they can use mine. I don't care. If anybody wants to find out more about Jason Harris, we'll definitely include information about how they can find him and follow him in our show notes. And that's it. Thanks for joining us today on the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast. We'll see you next time.
Hey, Roger, Earl, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. This has been our pleasure.
It was our most sincere pleasure.
Hope you got value from this episode. And if you have a minute, then take the time to leave an honest written review for the podcast, because we take those reviews seriously and it'll help us serve you better on the next episodes. And most importantly, be sure to start taking action so you can control your financial future today.